Hi students and learning coaches, welcome back to Literature and Comprehension. We're going to continue our work in Unit 20. This is Lesson 6 and the title of this lesson is Review the Little Red Hen. We're going to continue looking at the story The Little Red Hen, and that story is found in your K-12 Read Aloud Treasury on pages 148 and 149. If you're continuing this lesson on the same day that you did Lesson 5, you do not need to go back and reread The Little Red Hen or go over the new words. But if you're doing this lesson on a different day, then you will want to go back and reread The Little Red Hen and go over the new words in the story. You will also need your K-12 Language Arts activity book. We're going to be doing page 63. You will also need a glue stick, some scissors, and construction paper. Today we're going to be talking about how to give a summary of a story. And a summary of a story is a very short retelling of the story that includes only the most important things that happen in a story in the order in which they happen. Now, a summary, boys and girls, is not the same as retelling a story because a summary does not include very many details. It only includes the most important things that happen in the story, and it tells the story in the order in which they happen. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to tell your learning coaches the answer. Okay, I want you to tell your learning coach what happens at the beginning of the story, and I want you to tell them and use only one or two sentences to tell them what happens at the beginning of the story. Okay, if you told your learning coach the little red hen finds a grain of wheat and asks the animals if they will help her plant it, that's correct. And what did all the animals say? They say, I won't. Now tell your learning coach what happens in the middle of the story and use only one or two sentences. If you told your learning coach the little red hen asked the animals to help her cut the wheat and take it to the mill, that is correct. And what do they all say when she asks them to help her cut the wheat and take it to the mill? They say, I won't. Now, boys and girls, tell your learning coach what happens at the end of the story. And remember to use only one or two sentences. If you told your learning coach the little red hen baked the bread and then she asked the animals who will help her eat it, that is correct. And what did they all say when she wanted to know if they would help her eat it? They said, I will. But she only shares the bread with her 4 little chicks. Now, I want you to look at your learning coach and I want you to tell them what happens in the story in just a few sentences. You're not going to retell the entire story. You're only going to tell them what happens in the story. Just use just a few sentences. You're going to give them a summary of the story. And remember, a summary is a very short retelling of the story that includes only the most important things that happen in the story. And you're going to tell it in the order in which it happened. And that's the sequence. Sequence is telling the story in the order in which it happened. So, for example, at the beginning of the story, the little red hen finds the grain of wheat and asks her friends to help, and they won't. And then the next thing that happens, she asks her friends to help her cut the wheat and take it to the mill, and they say, I won't. And then the last thing that happens is that she bakes bread and she asks the animals who's going to help her eat the bread, and they all say, we will. But she only shares the bread with her 4 little chicks. That would be a summary of the story, and I told it to you in the order in which it happened. All right, the next thing we're going to do is you're going to get page 63. This is what page 63 looks like. You're going to need glue and scissors. You're going to want to cut out all of these pictures. You're going to cut out the pictures of what the little red hen had to do so she could bake bread and feed the bread to her chicks. Once you have all these pictures cut out, you're going to put them in order. And boys and girls, if you forget what happened in the story, learning coaches, you can open up the story on page 148 and 149, and you can help your student decide which picture you're going to glue first, which picture happens next, and you're going to put the pictures in order of how it happened in the story. Once you do that, boys and girls, then I want you to retell the story of the Little Red Hen using the pictures as your guide. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then I want you to retell the story to your learning coach using the pictures to help you. Learning coaches, if your students had problems doing that, you may want to go back and reread the story again, pointing out what happened at the beginning of the story, what happened in the middle of the story, and what happened at the end of the story. If you have completed all of those activities and you want to do some more activities based on this story, there are some other activities that you can do. You may want to go to the library and look for a copy of The Little Red Hen. You may want to do another book walk through that book and look at the title, look at the pictures, and then maybe perhaps that book that you get from the library may be a different version of the story. It might tell it a little bit differently. So students, you could read that book and then you could compare the two versions of the story and tell how they are alike and how they are different. And maybe the book that you choose at the library, it might have a different ending than the story had in our story that we read. So you may want to tell your learning coach whether you like the story that we read better or the one that perhaps you choose at the library. You might like it best. So you may want to tell them which one is your favorite. And boys and girls and learning coaches, thank you so much for participating in our lesson today. I hope that you enjoyed reading the story, The Little Red Hen.